And you thought, who is that? Well, today's speaker is Les DeShane. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, DJ, photographer, martial artist, so be careful, world traveler, who will give a brief overview of his life as a musician, starting as a child on the piano, through school days, and then through the adventure of 52 countries around the world. He's traveled through singing, with singing and entertaining the masses. Les does classical, country, pop, rock, folk, blues and ballads. He's originally from the USA and grew up in Houston, Texas, and lived in New Orleans, Louisiana, before moving to the Caribbean island of St. Martin, where he had a popular band, Jukebox Heroes SXM. Was that the name of the band? Jukebox Heroes SXM. That became famous for an original song called the Dutch Side Song, which maybe we might hear this morning, I don't know. So please give a warm welcome to Les DeShane.
All right. Where's my microphone? Oh, not here?
I need this for later.
Okay. I thought we were going to talk there and then go over there. Okay, we start here, yeah? That was fun. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Oh, it's good. Okay. All right, guys. So anyways, thank you for having me today. First off, I just want to say that. I'll say that again. And that was a great introduction. Basically, I will start with telling you my life story in a very short version, which starts, I guess, with this picture here. This is the very young maestro, Les DeShane, myself. When I was I was born in Illinois, and I grew up in Texas, Houston, Space City, USA. And I did all the things that most Texas boys do, which is ride horses, fishing, shooting guns, and all that kind of outdoor stuff, and riding four-wheel drives through the mud. And actually, I went to Sam Houston University for a little while. I did not complete it, but I learned a lot while I was there. And I also went to martial arts kung fu school in Humble, Texas, for 5 years, where I got my black belt in kung fu, this authentic Shaolin and praying mantis kung fu. But most of the time in Texas, as I was growing up, I was stuck for at least 30 minutes every day on the piano. Every day after I got home from school, I would have to practice for at least 30 minutes. And at that time, it seemed tedious and like something that I didn't want to do. But I did love Beethoven, and in the end, it was probably the best thing that happened for me as a child, because eventually I became a professional musician. I played the piano for a while, and I played the saxophone in the school band for the honors band, but once I found the guitar, boom, that's what I went for. And I started playing guitar and was in a few little bands in high school, but not much really to talk about. And then I was sent away to the Davy Crockett National Forest, which is where I actually learned to really play the guitar, because there was no electricity. We built all of the structures by hand, toilets, the houses, everything. We literally lived in the woods with no electricity for 6 months. It was a survival camp, and I got sent there because I had been bad. But anyways, so they said. So I have a band in Houston that's called the Space Cowboy Band, because it's Space City, USA. And this was a picture that a fan drew when we first put the band together, and that's kind of the Space Cowboy picture right there. So anyways, there we are on the marquee as an example of one of the shows we used to play. This is the band right there at the Backwood Saloon. And then this is me before I had the bands, I had some problems, and I ended up playing on the street. I was on the run from the law, in fact, for a little while. It's all over, don't worry, nobody's looking for me now. But this was when I was playing in the streets for change, all over the world eventually, but at first at the Artist Market in Austin, Texas, on Guadalupe Street. There's a little artist market there, and I used to sit there and play for change, and I made friends with the police, fortunately, who never gave me a problem. And this is some of the artwork that is there in Austin where I was playing for change on the street at the Artist Market. This is what it looks like during the day. Normally this is all filled up with crafts and people with their booths selling things. And then I escaped the police in Texas and went to New Orleans. And my plan was to get a passport, go to London, and be a rock star. They had to catch me first before I was gonna go down, you know? So I ended up here in New Orleans, and I'm sure you know the backdrop here, Jackson Square, St. Louis Cathedral, but you might not know this place right here, which is where I used to busk. This is called the Moonwalk, and it's right on the Mississippi River. And if you ever go to New Orleans, you can go stroll along the Mississippi River, and you might see a guy busking just like I did, right here at the top of the stairs. That is where I learned the most important skill that I have as an entertainer. I learned it from another guy who was sitting there one day, and he was busking, and I thought, oh, that'll never be me, or whatever, you know, this guy, oh, look at him playing in the streets and stuff. And in fact, that guy taught me very important things. One of the skills that he taught me, well, I'll tell you what he said. I said, how do you do what you do? And he said, well, first, you get a brown paper bag, you roll up the ends, and you get a rock, and you stick it in there, and you set it down where people are walking by. That way it doesn't blow away. So anyways, that was lesson number one. And he said, and then you gotta sit there and you gotta think, what songs do I know that they know? Any average or a random person that comes walking by, you gotta use ESP. You gotta like try to figure out what they're about and what song they like to get them to stop for just a minute out of their time, out of their life. Because they're not there to see you, you're just playing on the street. So that skill is what really helps me even to this day when I play music, because I use it in any room or any venue that I'm at. I have to read the people, read the crowd, figure out what is the best music for those people. And I learned it right there at the Moonwalk. And sometimes it's easier. Sometimes somebody has a shirt on that says Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd or Elvis or whatever. Then you know what to play. But normally, I don't see any shirts here with any band names on it. So you gotta use your brain, you gotta use a little bit of ESP to figure out what do they like that I can get them to stop and listen for a few minutes and maybe tip me. So that's what I did, and I did that all over the world eventually. I escaped the States and went to Amsterdam first, and then I went to London. I was in Paris. This here is in Paris. This is at Sacré-Cœur. I don't know if you've been to Paris, but this is a very good spot to check out. And there's lots of buskers on the stairs here. And I did pretty well, as you can see. And I met a lot of girls there, too. That was an added benefit of playing in the streets, is that you meet a lot of people, you know, that you might not have met. This is in Vienna, Austria. This is in Denmark, Copenhagen. This is in Africa, Morocco, in Marrakesh. And once again, even the girls liked me there too. That was cool. All right, let's see. This is a buddy of mine from France, and we were busking. This is also in Morocco, but it's in Essaouira. I don't know if you've heard of this city. It's a very nice city on the coast. And we used to busk there. I particularly like this picture because we've got the two birds sitting with us as we busk, like just chilling with us. Anyways, so, and this is me once again in Morocco, the maestro, traveling around the world, playing music, wherever I can find a place to play. And this is when I rode a camel across the desert of Egypt to the pyramids with my guitar. True story. I'm kind of proud of that one. I have a video of me on the camel too, but we didn't bring that today. But anyway, so that's a pretty cool picture, I think. And then, after all that traveling around, I had ended up in St. Martin. Right after I came back from Europe, I got caught in the airport, and then I I got taken to the holding tank, and then I went through all the process. Eventually it was all dismissed. And so then I met a girl at that artist market that I showed you earlier in Austin. She was from the Caribbean, and she said, why don't you just move to the Caribbean with me? So I did that. I moved to the Caribbean. This is St. Martin. This is on the French side. And here's another picture of me. Big change there. I'm a man of many hats. And then I had a band called the Jukebox Heroes. And this band became famous somewhere there in the Caribbean, on the islands. And we wrote a song called the Dutch Side Song, as Roy mentioned earlier. Right here on this beach, this is Simpson Bay Beach, which is right outside my front door. And right about there, whoops, right about there was where I was sitting when the song came to me, the Dutch Side Song, and that song made us very popular. It is still on the radio today on various islands in the Caribbean. And because of that success, we got to play the main stage of the Heineken Regatta and open for the Black Eyed Peas. So I don't know if you're a fan of them, but they were really big at this point. They had just become like the biggest new hip-hop band. And we were happy when they came to play the regatta, and we got to open on the same stage as them. It was about thousands of people. So we also got to hang out and play with Bob Marley's band because of our success. This is Bob Marley's band right here. The Wailers, if you're familiar with Bob Marley and the Wailers. I never imagined that I would get to hang out with those guys, but it happened, and it was a pretty cool event. And then, 8 years later, and a whole lot of drama and a whole lot of things that happened, I finally returned to that island because I hadn't been there in a while. As I told you, I've been traveling all over the world, 52 countries, and I basically had already done everything that I could do there in the Caribbean, and been on TV and the radio, and like I said, I just moved on and kept going. This is me just this last March. Again, when I returned 8 years later, they remembered me and put me in the paper and had me on the stage of the Heineken Regatta. And you can see this is the name of my band right there, Jukebox Heroes. So it was a pretty big event. And it was nice to be remembered 8 years later. You know, normally you show up 8 years later, oh, who are you? We forgot all about you. But no, they put me in the paper, they put me on TV, and they put me on the main stage once again. This is the main stage that I was talking about, that I was playing. It's pretty nice. Stage, this is it at night. This is me in the paper there, writing about the past and how I've returned after 8 years later, and they still remembered me. It was a good feeling. Who is this guy? Wait a second, something's wrong with this guy, man, I'll tell you what, everywhere I go, this guy pops up out of nowhere sometimes, threatening to ruin